Anyway, thank you. Thank you for inviting me here to Prague for this conference. And it's interesting because this is a kind of a very... Normally when they invite someone for a keynote, what they're expecting is something that is inspirational, that uplifts you and motivates you, right? Generally, that's what you expect from a keynote, yeah? You're in the wrong room in this way, this time. This is a very depressing talk, if anything. So normally I give it, I've given it at the start of the conference and at the end of the conference, and last time I got some feedback saying, it was such a great conference, why did you have to depress me so much at the end? So hopefully I won't depress you, but get us all thinking a little bit. So welcome to the machine. How many of you here are fans of Pink Floyd? Nice. So you may have known the album by Pink Floyd from 1975 by Roger Waters, which was called Welcome to the Machine, and this talk has absolutely nothing to do with that, but I like the title, and I decided to use it. Although it does have a little bit of relationship, which we'll see. Amusing Ourselves to Death. That was also, if you don't know, an album by who? There you go, Roger Waters. And it was also a book by a chap called Neil Postman that was written in 1985. And he was talking very passionately about Telegram and TV. He was actually talking about the TV. How many of you have read this book? He was talking about TV, right? And he was talking about how, you know, we started out, all of us living in isolated societies, in small little towns, disconnected from everyone else. And then they introduced this thing called the telegram. And they introduced then this thing called the radio. And then the TV came. And the TV was amazing because the TV connected us with the world. The TV gave us information about what was going on in all parts of the world, right? If a kangaroo had escaped from a zoo in Sydney, we would know about it now living somewhere in Hradec Králové. Did I say that properly? Right? We would know about the kangaroo that's left Sydney. And it started to promote so much information. It was great. But soon what happened is that the relevance started to become lost in irrelevance. We started to get a lot of information. And the problem was, of course, that the information needed to be entertaining because now there were so many TV channels. There were so many competing companies trying to get your or get the audiences and get your attention. So now we started to entertain, and TV actually led to that. TV led to people being entertained. You had to look in a certain way, you had to act in a certain way, and it started to, you know, take over the household. And that was the old days, of course. What he was saying about the TV is that it was altering the meaning of being informed, in that it was kind of creating this thing called disinformation. And disinformation doesn't mean false information, or as we know today, fake news. But what it meant is that it was giving you information that was kind of misplaced, a little bit not giving you the full picture. And yet we all started to get a sense that we are so informed. We know everything about everything there is to discuss, whether it's politics, religion, whatever it is, we knew about it because we had listened to the news, we had listened to the TV, and we knew everything that was going on. Now, many of you have probably heard of this book. How many of you read this book? Brave New World, right? This was written back in 1931, and it was talking about a controlled population with artificial procreation back in 1931. Psychological manipulation back in 1931, and continuous usage of substances for entertainment. And it meant more than just a little drink of beer and vodka. Now what Neil Postman was saying is that what Orwell essentially feared was that, you know, they would deprive us of information, they would control us, they would not allow us to see what we want to see. And what the Brave New World was depicting, Aldous Huxley was saying, was that we will be lost with so much rubbish and crappy entertainment that we won't care. We won't care that there's enough books, but we won't care about them. We'll just be constantly high and not worried about anything. So in short, what Neil Postman was saying, that Orwell feared that what we hate will ruin us, while Huxley feared what we love will ruin us. So this is a book about the possibility that Huxley was right and not Orwell. Unfortunately for Neil Postman, we kind of got both worlds. So, of course, that was the TV. Then we got, what's this? Did you ever use one of these? Anyone? Yes? It's called the internet. Yeah, back then it was the internet, okay? It was a BBS that you would connect to. And, you know, when the internet came, a lot of things obviously changed. One of them was the printed media. The printed media needed to survive, so the printed media went online and started to, you know, create their contents online because they needed to compete with everything else that was starting to appear online. But the media, of course, saw such a big opportunity because they said, look, we can actually post information and have advertising, and you get a tiny little advertising in the corner, which is fantastic, right? You go there, you see it, and it's great. They called it revenue. We called it annoying banners. I mean, if you go to my local newspaper, well, in Spain, this is the website of my Spanish newspaper. Well, not mine. I mean, I try and read multiple, but you can see that it's overwhelming with banners, right? It's like, it's so bad. In fact, my local one actually scrolls the banner as I'm trying to read the news article, right? So I can't even see it. So what did we do? We installed ad blockers. What did the media do? Say, we've noticed you've installed the ad blocker. Could you remove it? And we said, screw you. No, I'm going to try and hack it and remove your overlay, right? Now, many took the route of native advertising. How many of you here have heard of native advertising? Native advertising has been around for many, many years. If you notice on some newspapers, when you go there, there is a small little section that says in the corner, sponsored by, right? And sometimes it's depicted a little bit differently, maybe has some background color, or sometimes it doesn't. But there's tiny little links that says sponsored by. Now, to the, you know, person that's paying attention, they'll notice that this is actually sponsored content. For many people, it's not. So if you read an article that says, you know, it's been demonstrated that being a vegan will kill you, right? And you're like, oh my God, this is really, really bad. And then it says, you know, sponsored by Meats or Us. Well, it kind of gives things a little bit of a different perspective. But that's what's happened now with native advertising. You see it all the time, right? Now, I may notice this. My mother may not notice this. Other people may not notice this, and they might think that what they're really reading is actually news, it's actually facts. So this is the whole beauty of native advertising. Now, some interpret it as news, others as facts. And then, of course, we have targeted advertising, which is allowing to track people, right? They call it a personal experience. We call it personal manipulation. Because back in the old days, when you used to go to, you know, when you drive down the road, there's a banner on the highway. That banner, what is it doing? It's advertising to everyone that drives past that. Now, the general rule of thumb in advertising is that 50% of your audience is lost. So you're only capturing the attention of 50%. Imagine if that banner were to change based on the people that are driving past. That is what the internet is, right? We are manipulating people and we're driving them to certain places based on the advertising that we give them. In fact, I recently, just yesterday, I saw this tweet, which you should take a look at, which is basically Tencent, a company in China that is inserting advertising in videos where that advertising wasn't actually there. So you can see the image of the left, that is the actual video. On the right is where they've installed some advertising, right? So in videos, they are doing that. And I'm like blown away. And someone said, no, actually, this has been going on for some time. And there's a company in Britain that does it as well, right? They can actually insert advertising inside videos, which is fantastic. What's even better, though, is that fortunately for us, we've got GDPR to save us. And GDPR gave us a hell of a lot of banners and pop-ups. And we used to read articles that say how we respect your privacy, and in the bottom there's an I accept, give us all of your data. There's some companies that said, screw the Europeans, kind of like another country in Europe, and said, you know, well, we're not even going to cater to you. Screw you, we don't have enough business from the Europeans to even bother about GDPR, not really understanding that that's not how GDPR works, but anyway. And all of this is because there's so much information that's yearning for our attention, right? Everyone, just like the days of the TV, they want to get our attention. But the difference is that we've got such a short attention span nowadays that, you know, now people are complaining, saying, oh, I can't be bothered to read a Twitter thread, right? Before it was like, oh, I could read a tweet or a few tweets, but not a blog post. Now, just like if you have more than one tweet, it's like, oh, this is too long, I'll read it later. And all of this so that we click on these ads, right? And of course, now we're getting the best of both worlds because we're moving to a paid model, right? So if you go, for example, to certain newspapers like The Guardian's like a donation-based paper. Yes, it's like, please donate to us, please, 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 and we really need you. The Telegraph started by giving you 5 articles free, and then it started to move into what it was called the premium. So if you go to the Telegraph, you can see that there's premium, premium, premium. Now everything is basically premium. So now you have to pay to actually read the news. The Independent has a very interesting take on it. It says that, we've noticed you're using an ad blocker. Do you want to pay, right? And they say that, if you pay, it'll be great because, you're going to support the great independent advertising. And you start to think, well, okay, what happens if I don't pay? Do I get non-independent advertising? How does that actually work, right? But many of us will say that traditional media is even a thing of the past. I mean, how many of you here read newspapers online? Yeah, well, you don't, right? I mean, maybe 30% of you. The rest of you get your information from Twitter and other places, right? Because social media, in fact, is feeding the social media is feeding the media, right? You see something going on, and all of the medias are like jumping on board that tweet. May we use this? May we use this? And usually, in this thread, there is someone from the Daily Mail, which if you haven't heard of, it's a UK publication, which is some people like, some people hate. And Daily Mail comes and says, can we use this? And then there's like 300 people saying, no, tell the Daily Mail to F off. Don't let them use your video or whatever. And we're starting to get all of this information from microjournalists. We've all become microjournalists. We all shoot that video. We all shoot that thing that's going on. And it's great. It's given everyone actually a voice. And it's given us what? Information overload. In fact, if before we were overloaded with the amount of information, now we're even more overloaded. And we've got our different little platforms. We've got Twitter, we've got Facebook, we've got Snapchat. Let's hold a moment of silence for Google+. It sucks, because I always used to make a joke when I used to talk about Google+ and say there's 3 people on Google+. I can't even say that anymore. So the thing is that we are in our walled gardens, right? And we've created a very curated environment in these walled gardens. We follow people that are like-minded to us. We don't follow people that are radically different. We try and block those that we don't agree with. The platforms gives us the tools that says, oh, you don't like what this person is saying? Mute them. You don't like it? Block them. And we've created basically our own echo chamber. And who is the keeper of all of this information? Who is the keeper of our platform on the walled gardens? The platform, right? It creates the content that matters to us. It shows us the information that we care about. And we trust the keeper in doing this. We say, yep, okay, you show me what's important to me. And in fact, we even help the keeper. We say, yes, hit like on something you like. Hit thumbs down on something you don't like. Hit angry emoji icon on something you hate. The fact that there's an angry emoji icon on blog posts and platforms is just wrong. I mean, have you thought about it for a moment? Why show this type of anger and icons on information that you read on the internet? We hit dislike. And most of all, we hit share. And all of this is curating those beautiful algorithms, telling us what we want to hear more of. It's fantastic. And these algorithms, what are they focused on? Engaging people. And they're focused on targeting people because all they want to do is engage people so that they can target people, essentially. To what? To essentially sell ads. So often what you see may not even be what the reality is. A few years ago, Mark Zuckerberg banned this photo from Facebook because they said, oh, it's a naked kid. Now, we all know where this picture comes from, and so did some newspaper in Norway, so they highlighted it and they say, why did you censor this? What about the things that we don't know if they're being censored? And talking about censorship on Facebook is an amazing thing because it allows Facebook to get rid of all of that horrible things that you do not want to see. Because we're on Facebook to see pictures of friends and family the way they want to portray themselves, not the way they really are, but how they want to be. And we don't want to see the ugly stuff, right? So, you know, they've got this kind of cookbook of what is allowed and what is not allowed, such as someone shoot Trump should be deleted because as a head of state, he is a protected category. But videos of violent deaths, while maybe disturbing, shouldn't be deleted because they can help create awareness issues. This is ruled by Facebook. And of course, there's the human side of Facebook, which is the new essentially sweatshops, where there's low-paid workers in many countries basically suffering from anxiety and depression, getting rid of the information that we shouldn't be seeing tucked up in our cozy little platform of Facebook, right? So there's literally nothing enjoyable about the job. You'd go into work at 9 a.m. every morning, turn on your computer and watch someone have their head cut off. Every day, every minute, that's what you see. Heads being cut off. There are people that are doing this so that we can enjoy cat pictures. And then, of course, you ask, but do I see everything? It doesn't matter. We don't know what's being sent or not. We get bite-sized information that we can easily share. And that's one of the big issues of all of this, which is the share, right? I follow Mr. Frog. Mr. Frog and I have known each other for a long, long time, and I trust Mr. Frog. And Mr. Frog tweeted the other day and said, oh my God, this is definitive proof that the earth is flat. The article is mind-blowing. So I'm going to share that. Because, well, there are people that would actually share that because they actually think that the earth is flat, but that's a completely different thing. But the point is that, what is my thought process going into this? Well, the person is someone I generally trust. I skim the article. It kind of aligns with my thoughts, a little bit of confirmation bias coming in place, and I'll share it and maybe read it later in detail. Because why not? You know, I'm using my platform to share information. What we generally don't know is, okay, let me first see if it's fake or not. Let me read the article in detail and contrast it with other sources. Let me, you know, that little clip of the video of the politician or whoever that was saying something really, really offensive, let me just look at that clip. Let me not look at the longer clip and see exactly what was happening. Let me just look at that small little clip. Don't let me put any voice or snippet or any quote in context. Let me just share it. Hell, we don't even read the comments on the blog post. There's a tweet that goes out and it turns out that it's completely false or misinformation and it's being pointed out on the comments saying this is wrong. The tweet has 600,000 shares. The comment saying it's wrong has 200 shares. We don't even bother at times looking at that before we just click share. I asked this on Twitter. I mean, I don't get a lot of responses when I tweet something. But yes, even those that responded to me, they say they never even read the comments or contrast information. Why? Because we don't have time. We don't have time to do this, right? We are busy at work and scrolling through Twitter and Facebook. We don't have time to contrast everything. So what we can do is just share and forget. And the platforms make it really, really easy for us to share and forget. And we share many topics. We share about companies, organizations, about individuals, about politics. If you've ever seen this article, which is called The 29 Stages of a Twitter Storm, anyone seen it? So essentially, some company does something wrong, someone catches wind, makes the rounds, a famous person makes a comment around it, the media notices it, company is forced to apologize, everyone forgets and moves on to tomorrow. All of this happens in a span of 1 or 2 days. Every day, there is something that is happening. But you're like, no, but this is good. We're going to show those nasty corporations, right? We all got a voice and we can destroy them. We can really, really harm them with our voice. What about the individuals? How many of you remember this lady called Justine Sacco? One person. So Justine Sacco was this lady that was getting on a plane to Africa, South Africa, from London Heathrow, and she tweeted, heading to South Africa, hope I don't catch AIDS. I'm kidding, I'm white. So by the time she took off, now a lot of you laugh and find it funny, and she said that she was being very sarcastic. But from the time she took off to the time she landed, her complete life was completely and utterly destroyed. In 8 hours, her life was completely destroyed. She became the top trending topic in the world. She got fired. She got harassed. Everything. She went into hiding for several years. Okay? Nobody cares. Nobody remembers her. We gave her justice. Nobody questioned, was that actually a sarcastic tweet or not? And was it okay that she did it or not? Was it wrong that she did it or not? But these are the things that what about the things that we actually don't follow up on? What about those stories that we don't follow up on? Because you see, social media has essentially made us judge, jury, and executioner. With one tweet, with one little thing, we can just judge people, destroy their lives if we want to, and not care about it until the day comes tomorrow. If you've seen the movie 1984, 5 Minutes of Hate, it kind of at times feels like that. But there are things, of course, that have a much broader impact, like violence. Yes? Sharing information and misinformation about and disinformation about things that are happening in the world, leading to people being killed. In India, people being burned to death because of rumors on WhatsApp, because people essentially are sharing information without contrasting it and forgetting about it. And then, of course, there's politics. You've all probably heard of Cambridge Analytica. It's funny, I was talking about Cambridge Analytica because before Cambridge Analytica was Cambridge Analytica. But the most amusing thing about this is that you know, like, okay, we can do this thing called targeted advertising, and in this targeted advertising, we can sell products to people based on their behavior and their likes. It doesn't take a genius to put 2 and 2 together and say, well, if we can do this to sell them a washing machine, why can't we do this to make them vote in a certain way? Like, you don't have to be a genius to figure this out, right? And what we're doing is essentially using the platform that allows behavioral targeting of individuals to sell them politics, to tell them how to vote. And it's not the extreme right or the extreme left and what everyone is doing it. Hell, the what's considered the most social, amazing workers' people party in Spain, which is consider themselves left-wing, are the ones that spend the most money on advertising on Facebook. They're all doing it. Now, I'm not judging about the fact that whether they stole data or they didn't steal data, but this mind blown of people of saying, oh my God, did they really target me with a political message? Why the hell not? There's no rules that says they're not allowed to. In fact, they've got these thing called dark posts, which people promote and say they're amazing. The dark post is basically they don't show up in your feed, and they avoid that it looks spammy, and they allow you to do precise micro-targeting. I mean, if anyone's done any advertising on Facebook, it says, what gender do you want to target? What ethnics do you want to target? What region you want to target? It's beautiful. Invented by Facebook, available all over the world. Right? It's fantastic. So this micro-targeting is basically profiling voters based on social media and other data. And then it's creating these tribes and then having these tribes spread the message, because that's what we are. As humans, we like to be part of a tribe. And you know what we call it in marketing? We call it word of mouth marketing, because it sells. What's the best marketing? Word of mouth. It's not a banner on a website. It's your colleague says, hey, use IntelliJ. It's awesome. By the way, it is. But if it wasn't clear, I work for JetBrains. There's a very good talk by TED that says, we're building a dystopia just to make people click on ads. But of course, dystopia, don't talk about this rubbish. This is not going to come. This is all fairy tales. So can anything good come out of all of this? Yes, there was a lady that was saved because she had this issue. If she would go back to Saudi Arabia, she could have been in prison or killed. So yes, I'm not saying it's all bad. But there's a hell of a lot of bad coming out of it now and less good coming out of it. Anyone remember the Arab Spring? Yeah, what happened to that? Oh, never mind. Anyone remember the green avatar for Iran? What happened? No? I was born in Iran, so I remember this. Many years ago, everyone on Twitter put their avatar green to support the uprising of the younger generation in Iran to overthrow the government. What happened to that? Not much. A few hundred, I don't know how many people got killed. Many others got imprisoned. But hey, you know, Neil Postman talked about us being passive observers, right? We would sit in front of the TV and just observe everything that's going on, and then make commentary about everything that's going on. Social media has actually made us armchair participants. Because when we paint our avatar green, when we cheer on that person fighting in some country for whatever, it's not going to impact our lives much. We're not at risk. And we don't think about the consequences of these things when we constantly share and promote and try and support. And I'm not saying we're evil to try and support, but we have to think about everything before being so participant. But, you know, you say, forget politics. I'm not in this for politics. It's about family and friends. I just like sharing taking selfies of myself and pictures of my food. It's so bad, you know, it's become so bad that every time I go to a restaurant, every couple, non-couple, anyone that sits, the first thing they do is take a picture of their food and then start eating. It's become like a prayer, you know. You're like, no, I just browse through my friends' timelines and see what they're up to. It helps me stay connected with families and friends. I quit WhatsApp after it was purchased by Facebook. And my family said, how do we contact you? I said, look, there's a little button that says dial number. And then eventually I moved them onto Signal. So this has psychological impacts, right? There's also that. Scroll and refresh. How many likes did I get? I posted that picture. Why aren't people liking it? You know, why? I keep refreshing. Why is it? Was it wrong? Did I say something wrong in that tweet? Why aren't people retweeting me? Oh, look, what a wonderful life others are having. Facebook is actually quite depressing, right? And then there's many studies that are showing teen depressions, suicides, all of these things happening because of social media, because of the impact that this is having on our lives. So you say, but you know, this isn't just about social media. We're sharing so much data. I mean, if you want to do exercise, there's an app for it. You want to run, there's an app. You want to lose weight, there's an app. You want to drink wine, there's an app. You want to sleep, there's an app. You want to work, there's an app. Read, there's an app. Watch, there's an app. Travel, there was an app, and then Google killed it, and then they came up with their own app, and then they killed that. There's an app for it. Anything you want, there's an actual app for it. And you don't even need apps nowadays. You call it Alexa, Google, Siri, Cortana, Bixby. Bixby is funny. I've got a Samsung, and I keep disabling Bixby, and every time it updates, it's like, hey, welcome to Bixby. I'm like, no, right? So whatever you want, it's there. And you're like, oh, big deal. So I get some targeted ads. Yes, Bruce Schneier says that the surveillance is the business model of the internet. We build systems that spy on people in exchange for services. Corporations call it marketing. It's fantastic. You're like, but my data is meaningless. I get it for free. I don't care. In fact, it's so meaningless that there's a cafe near Massachusetts that allow people to get free coffee if they hand over their personal data. You know, you read some articles about Amazon Go, the new shop that you just walk in and out of, and the newer generation saying, I don't care, they can just know anything they want about me. That's absolutely fine. Amazon reportedly employs thousands of people to listen to your Alexa conversations, right? This thing that was meant to be automated, no, people listen to it, but don't worry about it. I mean, if you're not using Alexa, it's absolutely okay because Siri does the same thing. And for folks from Google, don't feel left out because you get the same thing from Google. And if anyone in their right mind is still using Skype, Skype does that as well. So Mirko actually gets more votes when he asks for something. And he said, if Google would start charging money for Google search, how many of you would pay? No, screw you. I want my shit for free. I don't want to pay for this crap. You know that saying that says if you're not the product, if you're not paying for it, you're the customer, you're the product being sold, right? That's a lie. You're now the product anyway, whether you pay for it or not. You're just screwed. We're just screwed anyway. World's most valuable resource is no longer oil, it's data. And the good thing is that data isn't going to expire and get old, and it's basically infinite amount of data. And it's getting worse. You know, we've heard of Internet of Things. LG threatens to put Wi-Fi in every appliance. Like, it threatens, and it did. Okay? LG smart appliances now work with both Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant. Fantastic. How to turn off smart TV snooping features. It's like I'm sitting in the living room with my wife, and I'm like, let's step outside. I want to say something to you, and I don't want the TV to listen to us. Right? It's no longer the kid. It's the TV that we have to be worried about. And people talk about the Internet of Things. What about the Internet of People? There's the literal aspect of it, which is, you know, some people in Sweden are implanting some chips in their body so that they can go like this when they pay without having to put their phone or their credit card. It's so much easier. But the point is that it's not even the Internet of Things. It's the Internet of us. We are the ones that are generating so much data. It's just we got little different devices right now. And what did we do? We basically sacrificed our privacy for convenience. Because it's absolutely okay, right? I want this convenience, and I don't give a crap about my privacy. And questions we don't usually ask is, where do they store my data? Do they send it anywhere? How can they use it? Is it safe? In terms of what? There was actually Mirko, the same guy that I just showed you, did this thing in London where they gave free Wi-Fi to people. In the terms and conditions, they said that you have to give us your first newborn, right? Many people signed up to that Wi-Fi until someone noticed it. Behind at-home DNA testing companies sharing genetic data with third parties. But don't worry, it's all anonymized. AI could reinvent medicine or become patient's nightmare. Yes, because now it's with the Mayo Clinic. Google is talking about joining forces, but don't worry, it can all be anonymized. Roomba has been busy mapping our homes and sending the data to others, which is fantastic, right? Sex Life app users shared with Facebook. Okay. Default options. Do we even think about default options? I'm on a website called Untapped, and it's an application which every time I drink a beer, I check it in so that I remember the crappy beers that I don't like to drink anymore. And one time I drank a really bad beer, and it was made in Spain. And I'm like, this is really bad. I wonder what other reviews there are in it. And I browsed through the web and I found my own review on it. And I'm like, what the hell? My profile is private. Oh, no. Actually, no. At some point, it just changed default to public. Right? Thousands of Google calendars possibly leak because the default option is to make everything public. Do we take time to configure these things? I said, I went into LinkedIn some time ago and I said, it says, Hadi, you're the boss of your account. I'm like, finally. Boss of something. And I said, let me look at this. Let me try and configure this. So I said, okay, let me go and see how others see my profile of network information. That was page 1. This was page 2. This was page 3. This was page 4. This was tab 2. You see, there's so much who's actually sitting and going through all of these options. We're making it ever more complicated for users to control their data. And when it's not optional and they don't tell you about it, right? Facebook says it needs to always know your location and is warning iOS users, at least they're telling you about it. Well, one thing they told you about it. Bose headphones spies on listeners. You know that, connect your Bose headphones to the app to get a better experience? Yes. Vibrator maker to pay millions over claims it secretly tracked users. AccuWeather caught sending user location data even when location sharing is off. Over 500 Android apps on the Play Store found spying. Uber was spying. Runkeeper was secretly tracking your information. This one's the best one. AT&T, you don't even have to have location sharing on. They just sell your data based on your GPS tower location. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's fine. It's absolutely okay. They gave a bounty on to $300 with no location sharing, found the person based on the data that AT&T sells. And then, of course, there's the issues. Yes, I used to use this app until about a month ago or so. Cam Scanner. Anyone uses it? Yeah, uninstall it. Okay, some malware basically by third party, which was sending all your data to some site. Twitter warns that private tweets may have been public for years because of an issue. Facebook bug switched millions of privacy settings to public. It's great. We live in a world that the PR no longer has to worry. Every time there's a shitstorm, they'll say, sorry, it was a bug, right? Major iPhone FaceTime bug lets you hear the audio. And what, of course, if someone else accesses that data, such as Doxogram, right? Everyone doxed on Instagram. Major breach found in biometrics used by UK banks, police, and defense firms. Like, this isn't your average shop on the corner that doesn't, their password is password 1234. Credit reporting from Equifax, remember that? It's okay. Each person got paid $10 for the data breach. It's absolutely fine. GDPR came and saved the day for all of us in Europe as well. GDPR, all you know is about the fines, and you don't know where that money ever goes. And what if people use this data against you? There's a lot of people that are being doxxed, that are being harassed because they got all of this information. There's a website in the US called Family Tree, which you can go enter your data, and it's amazing. It's fantastic. It gives you all the information about someone. And that goes to another one which is called True Search People. And then there's another site which is called Reputation is Everything, right? It's called mylife.com. And this is available in the US. And I went to it and I looked through it and I said, let me try one of my colleagues. So I entered his name and it says locating your full reputation and background details, locating hidden social profiles and photos. Preparing reputation profile, right? Attention! Don't use this for evil. Preparing report for your colleague. Verifying personal information and contact details. Verifying address, history, and location. And if there's available pictures of the website, of the home, will include that too. Verifying relatives and associates. Verifying licenses and permits, and if they have any lawsuits, etc. It's getting all of this information, and then it's preparing a wonderful report for me that says, sign up, pay, you get the report. But don't use it for evil, right? It says, you shouldn't use this to not hire a person. You shouldn't use this to try and go after a person or anything like that. And then the website first is reputation is everything. So then what am I meant to use this information for? But it is scary that all of this information is there. And someone might say, yeah, but it's all public. Yes, but no one told you that you have to freaking put it online and make it so easy for everyone to get access to. You're like, oh, big deal. You know, I really don't have anything to hide. I'm not a big fan of Edward Snowden. I'm not going to get into that. But he did say one thing which is true. He said, if you don't care about the right to privacy because you have nothing to hide, it's like saying, I don't care for the right to freedom of speech because I have really nothing to say. But you're like, oh, it's not as if we live in an Orwellian society. Well, no, 1984, what was that about? That was about censorship. It was about control. It was about Big Brother. Remember PRISM? Nah. Well, now the FBI is actually helping companies to get information on individuals. You don't need to even have private access data anymore. I mean, if you want to try and file a visa for the US, they now ask for your GitHub account. For your GitHub, Twitter, Facebook, all of these, and try and see whether you should or you shouldn't go. China, of course, you've probably all heard of the ranking of citizens, yes? China has a system that ranks citizens. I've been there. I've seen it for myself. You get on a train. I've been on this exact train. It does say this. If you misbehave, your credit score will be lowered. If your credit score is lowered, you will be isolated from society. It is happening. Okay? It's just easier to implement in China. But it doesn't mean that tomorrow it won't eventually creep up on us. So China's telecom, ZTE, has collaborated with the Venezuelan government to make what's called a father card, which allows you to get bonus points on groceries and stuff, and at the same time maybe track where you're going. One of my colleagues works in Singapore, and he had this thing on his wrist which looks a little bit like a Fitbit. I'm like, oh, what's this? I said, is it a Fitbit? He said, no, this was given to me by the government. I said, what for? Well, if I do exercise, then they give me coupons for groceries and stuff. Like, how convenient, right? Fortunately, they've now partnered up with Fitbit, so it's even better. And legislation is slowly creeping in. You know, US ministers, well, okay, the UK right now has so many issues that encryption is like the last thing they need to worry about. Australians set to become guinea pigs for worldwide war on privacy. Yes, this law actually went into place so that they can snoop on you. Dutch House of Representatives passes dragnet surveillance bill. In Spain, we're very famous for one thing. If there's a new idea comes out, we will take it to the extreme, even if it is a bad idea. So in Spain, we're like, oh, you know this thing about how using social media profiles to target people with political campaigns, you know, that Cambridge Analytica thing kind of thing? Yes, so they passed a law to make that legal so that people can do it, political parties can do it. Germany wants access to citizens' data. There's a report on freedom of the internet, which guess what it's saying is just going to help. And companies are basically caving in, right? We'll abide by your rules. Bing in China, Netflix in Saudi Arabia. Well, oh, you don't like this little comedy that was criticizing some people of the Saudi Arabian family? It's okay, we'll take it off the platform when it comes to Saudi Arabia. You've all heard about the latest with Apple and others in China recently. Yeah, we'll just comply. MBA, whatever. It's okay. So how are we doing? Let's look back at Neil Postman's prediction of that Huxley was going to be right and not, what's the other guy's name? Orwell. Censorship, well, we got it. Control, we got it. Big Brother, we got it. Information is entertainment, we got it. Relevance is lost in irrelevance, we got that. Psychological manipulation, we got that. And shallow forms of entertainment, we got that. So, yeah, they were both right. Sorry. So, in the lyrics to Roger Waters, when he says, welcome, my son, welcome to the machine, where have you been? It's all right, we know where you've been. It is actually quite relevant to this topic. He was talking about the record industry. And when he was saying, what did you dream? It's okay, we know what you dreamed. It basically applies to life. And of course, now AI wants to play part of this as well. And I mean, if you've been to China, you'll see that there are cameras everywhere. There was this really interesting experiment they did where a reporter from the BBC that handed his picture over to the police and said, try and track me. And then he went somewhere random in the city. In 7 minutes, they managed to track him and arrest him. Right? There's cameras absolutely everywhere. And of course, you know when I was talking about the billboard? Well, now you're going to get targeted advertising in billboard as well. Piccadilly Circus now allows to recognize people in the square and based on that do targeted advertising. Isn't it fantastic? So as you're driving past now the highway, you get behavioral patterns, billboards as well. And then you've got the fake video generators, you've got the deep fakes, you've got the fraudsters using voice fakes to trick people into thinking what they want. And of course, AI also has issues, the issue of bias. Google classifies this into 3, which is selection bias, which is the data used to train the algorithm, is biased to begin with. I love the approach of, oh, you know what, we'll get rid of the humans in the picture and let AI decide things. Okay, where do we get the data? Oh, we've got loads of it for the past 100 years. Is it biased? Oh, yes. We got a lot of bias, and if we're feeding that bias into AI, guess what? It's going to be biased. Interaction bias, based on the algorithm in the way the user interacts with it, and you've got latent bias, which is the algorithm incorrectly correlates data with gender, race, etc. For example, yes, which one was the criminal? You don't have to say, it's the one on the right. Which one did the AI system think it was? The one on the left. And this, I mean, you've all heard of Tay, right? Tay was Microsoft's experiment to launch an AI Twitter bot. That's the result of it. After about a few hours, it was calling everyone a Nazi and to go F themselves, right? That was called interaction bias. So Amazon scraps secret AI recruiting tool that shows biases against women. And then we've got the naive implementation, an algorithm trained to detect sarcasm based on emojis. And of course, this even dates back before machine learning. There's a very good book called Weapons of Math Destruction, which I recommend you read, which talks about that based on zip codes, etc., police were using this information to incorrectly correlate criminality with locations in certain cities. And this is all because Kathy talks about no accountability for algorithms. They're created by private companies and used by public organizations. Historical data that comes from historical practices, that before there was more racism in certain areas than wasn't, which led to incorrect and bad historical data. Data points considered objective, such as zip code, are not. So this is not something new. This has been around for many, many years. It's just that now it's not just us creating the systems for it, but we're asking AI to play part of it as well. And this now, we're trying to do this for assessment, right? There's recently a software that came out that says, oh, we're going to interview based on your facial recognition and discard you as a candidate. So you don't have to worry about actually having a conversation with people. And we're not even talking about AI in the military here. But there are concerns. Now, you can, different people, you like them or you hate them, they have different concerns that they're saying that AI is evil. I mean, there's I'm guessing we're not going to the Terminator stage just yet, but this isn't about Terminator. This is about the consequences that it's going to have on people's lives, secluding those that are less fortunate. This is the direction we are heading. So in summary, and I told you at the very beginning that this isn't an uplifting talk, we are screwed. Okay? Now, the bad news is that this isn't an episode of Black Mirror, if anybody's watched Black Mirror. It's funny because I actually watched Black Mirror kind of after all this talk. But the good news is that, well, there isn't really much. So what can we do? So I actually gave this talk a few weeks ago in Poland, and I got some feedback, and they said, I didn't like the talk because it highlighted problems but didn't offer a solution. I'm so sorry. You know, I apologize that I don't have a solution to all these problems. It's like yesterday two women rang the doorbell and they said, do you have a minute for a quick question? I said, what? They said, what or who do you think is the main cause of all the wrongs in this world? I'm like, really? This is a quick question? So as a society, what can we do? Not GDPR, or at least not in its current implementation. Okay? GDPR right now is basically giving us a lot of pop-up banners. Now, there are people like Tim Berners-Lee, I don't know if you've heard of, he's a web developer, that he's talking about for the web, to try and move the web in a new direction. We need to put in certain regulations. Yes, those horrible things called regulations. Data checks, such as Kathy points out in her book, about the objectivity and transparency of algorithms. The ethic use of technology, I don't know actually if it's going to be viable or not. You know, I was recently in New Zealand and I was talking to a guy that was working at NASA, and they're working on nuclear energy. And he said, yeah, we had all of the people that kind of did the A-bomb went through an ethics course. Much good that did. As companies, so, you know, try and move towards models that aren't exploiting to that extent all of the behavioral and advertising aspects of individuals. India's Supreme Court rules privacy fundamental right in landmark case. Google is now saying that they're going to try and do these fact checks. So when you click on a link, it says, okay, well, this is 98% accurate. Here are the sources. Here is what you can contrast it with. The problem is, are we going to actually even bother reading that, right? Or are we just going to say, no, you know what? Screw it. I'll just share it and forget about it. YouTube, one of the worst algorithms in the world. Yes? I mean, if any of you have children, you know what happens with YouTube. Hey, I want to watch a program about fishing. Suddenly, it ends up a person cutting a shark's head and putting it on themselves, because everything goes to the extreme. If you notice with YouTube, it doesn't matter what you start watching, it always ends up on a video of Ben Shapiro. Okay? Always. And it's always driving people to the extreme. Why? Because extremism is engaging. Confrontation is engaging. And what they're doing is trying to engage. Now, Google has talked about they're going to improve the algorithms around YouTube. Microsoft says that democracy is at stake and we need to kind of regulate big tech. You know, this isn't even about tech. This is about us, right? We can blame tech all we want, but this is primarily about us and how we are in this disinformation society. So what can we do? Well, there are a few things actually. As consumers, we can stop putting all the blame on technology. We can stop and think that it doesn't matter. All that the internet has done is just make the problem bigger. But it doesn't mean that it wasn't there. It's always been there. Social media is an existential threat to the idea of technology, of democracy. Yeah, as long as democracy doesn't go the way you want it to go, right? Then it's an existential threat. No, it's us, the way that we're consuming information. Not everything we agree with is real. In fact, there's an article that shows pretty much everything is fake. It's fake in fake reviews, fake comments, fake businesses, fake politics, everything. There's so much fake. There was a review of on TripAdvisor, the best site for reviews, the best restaurant in the world. It turned out to be a garden shed in London. Some person basically put it up there. Yeah, and people were making reservations for a garden shed. The flip side of it is that not everything we disagree with is a bot or a fake. You know, oh, I don't agree with this. It doesn't align with my thoughts. It must be fake. This is one of the scarier parts also of this fake news thing, is that if we agree with it, it's good. If we don't, it's fake. We should contrast information that we read. We should understand that our own narratives are at play. Our own confirmation bias is at play. We have to be aware of our own confirmation bias. We have to try and break out of our own bubble. There's a good article that talks about how confrontation, in terms of seeing different angles, is a way that you can actually engage with people and become more civilized towards it. Twitter tells me to follow these two people. Check and contrast links from all sources, including obviously this talk. I've tried every time I give this talk to make sure that nothing is wrong or outdated. If it is, shout out at me and make sure you do it on social media so you can shame me. As producers, evaluate before handing over data. Analyze before blindly sharing, because all of us are producers. Stop just sharing and retweeting. Think about the consequences of things that you are retweeting. Or in summary, just think first. Not just let me share and then think about it. An article from The Wire talks about think before you tweet in the wake of an attack. Yes, because if part of terrorism is to incite fear and terror, the more you share pictures, the more you share horrible things, just does that. Sometimes it's not that good to be quickly sharing everything. Facebook's 10-year challenge is a harmless meme, right? Well, we all know that that really isn't. And as technologists, this is probably one of the most fundamental things that I always do. Try and educate the less tech savvy. Try and make them understand the consequences of what they're doing. Try and make them understand that there are algorithms at play. Try and make them understand what behavioral targeting is. These are important things because as they start to understand, then they can make more rational choices. Explain to them the dangers of technology. Drive them towards more sustainable business models. It's not just about, oh, everything is free and open source in our world. Yes, but who's getting the data and what are they going to do with that data later on? Try not to sell people's data. Try and create businesses that aren't focused primarily around selling people's data. A very good blog post by this lady a few years ago that said a very selfish love letter to venture capitalists, where basically she was getting everything for free or subsidized because of VCs. At some point, those VCs are going to want to cash out. And then when they do, how are they going to make money? Either it'll crash and burn, such as like WeWork did, or it'll crash and burn, such as some driving sharing options will do in the future. We don't know. This idea that Facebook connects 6 billion people in the world maybe is not such a good idea. Maybe we should drive back towards smaller communities where people know each other or have more impact on each other. Because at the end of the day, we are all anonymous. Even though we're not anonymous, we are. In a world where I criticize someone that is in Indonesia, I don't care about their lives just like they don't care about my life. And this is brought about by having 5 billion people in the world connected. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to have so many people connected. Create interfaces that favor privacy. Don't create interfaces like LinkedIn, where you force the person to basically give up and not want to try and configure their options. Move away from dark UI patterns. Try and create things that help privacy. This is a great little device, gadget that's put on assistance that basically filters out everything, doesn't record anything until it hears the magic words, and then just discards it. So Google doesn't actually get to record anything. Great inception, great thing that you could do. Security shouldn't be an afterthought. Okay, we'll build something and then we'll worry about security. Account and work for diversity, especially if you're into machine learning, etc. Diversity is critical to all aspects of life, and even more so when it comes to giving everything up to the hands of the machines. Discuss, teach, and promote ethics. Don't do things like knowingly, get money from parents because you just want to make money. Don't do things like get teens to install VPN that spies on them. I could do a whole talk about Facebook, right? Don't do things like track data in images when it's not absolutely necessary. But the good thing is that Facebook got fined for all of this, right? The day it got fined, you know what happened? The stocks went up because that is peanuts, right? That's why things like GDPR need to be better. In Jurassic Park, it says your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. We actually often don't stop to think if we should as well when we're doing things. And as technologists, we have the greatest responsibility. So to summarize, whatever this machine may be, ultimately we are a cog in it. We are a cog in it as a producer, as a creator, as a consumer. So the question really is if we can alter it and change things. Thank you.